Hi, I'm Diana Yoakley. I'm a peaceful parenting coach and mom of three, and I'm delighted to give you the latest science backed research on child development, parenting, and to support you in showing up as the parent that you want to be. Welcome. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another amazing interview on my podcast. I have here with me Thana Vickerman. Hi, Thana. So glad to have you back on
Hi.
the podcast. I think you were on my podcast once, but we're doing another session, or it was a summit, one of the two.
Well, it's good to be here today. Thanks for having me.
Yes. Yeah, I'm really glad to have you back. So, Thana is a certified peaceful parenting coach, and she supports parents in everyday parenting stuff. And we're going to focus our conversation today on parental self regulation and what it really means to be regulated, calm enough, maybe redefining calm, and the nervous system state that we spend our days in parenting, and what we need to be doing to be effective in parenting and kind of normalizing some of these. So kind of a curious conversation around self-regulation. But before we get into that, would love to hand it over to you, Thana, to share a little bit about how you came to do this work of supporting parents and peaceful parenting specifically.
Well, I came to it becoming a mother, really. I
Yeah.
think the story I always tell is that when my son, you can hear my bird in the background, when my son Hugo was about 13 months and he was sitting on his little potty and he pulled the toilet paper roll down and it went, and I said, Hugo. And I heard myself say his name in a way that I'd never said it before. And I heard my mom saying, Dana Jean. And I'm like, I want to do this different. And so I started reading and looking and searching. And I read The Whole Brain Child and loved it. And then I came upon Dr. Markham's work and it just resonated so deeply with me. And I read it over and over again. I was talking about it all the time to friends, and a girlfriend of mine said, you should check and see if she has uh, some kind of a coach training or something. And I did. And she was just getting ready to do her first training ever. So
Yeah.
I applied and I was honored to be one of 15 of the in the first program from around the world. And it was amazing and life-changing for me. And so that's really how I got into that. And then I've expanded, of course. I've also trained with Larry Cohen, and
Mhm.
there's so many shoulders that I stand on, including my dear friends and the parents that I work with. And I love the work of Leslie Priscilla. Doctora Rocio Rosales Mesa has been influential to me, in addition to Tina Bryson and so many, many others. Lisa
Yeah.
Dion. My dear
Yeah.
friend Alejandra Sanchez, we talk parenting, and Ruth Beaglehole, she trained with her. She's an icon in Los Angeles. She died
Hmm.
a year ago.
Mm.
So many wonderful people have worked with her, and are continuing her work. And she was kind of an unofficial mentor for me.
Hmm.
So many people. So I'm really
Yeah.
happy to be here. I love working with parents, and it just helps me continue to work on myself and evolve and grow.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a journey of kind of joining together, right? Because parenting can feel so alone at times, especially when we're doing hard work of unwinding patterns. And it sounds like, yeah, you have a big influence of research-backed individuals, right? Like this nervous system lens around parenting. And I'm sure we could talk about our kids nervous system as well, but today's conversation will be focused on parental nervous systems and what does it mean to be calm, and is that the goal of parenting, to be calm? I mean, I'm actually promoting a summit that is going live, Calm Summer. Now, it didn't say calm parent, but we do talk about calm parenting all the time, right? Like this sounds like the
Right.
gold standard. So what do you
Yeah.
think about
Well,
that?
I'm getting ready to do some work with Crystal Harris too, which we'll talk about later. So that's somebody else that I love and revere. And
Yeah.
but I think that for a long time we've talked about parenting, the goal is to bring calm to their chaos, right?
Mhm.
And I don't know that I fully stand with that so much anymore. I love reframes, and I think the big reframe is that we really want to be present in the emotional state that we're in. And that's really the goal. That doesn't mean that that's any easier than going for being calm. And maybe in some situations, we would journey back to calm, but not always. I think the goal is to be present, with where we are and have that. And the key into that is awareness. So we start noticing where we're at in our body and trusting that our bodies are doing what they're supposed to do. There are reasons that we get dysregulated. When our brain senses a threat, it's supposed to protect us and keep us alive. That's its job, right? So we can be in a state of ecstatic joy and not be connected to ourselves
Right, right.
and not have choice in that moment, really. Or we
Mhm.
could be just drowning in grief and not be able to be so present. So I
Mhm.
think that whatever the emotion is, they're all important, they're all equal, that
Mhm.
sometimes it is appropriate and necessary and life-saving to be angry. Anger
Mhm.
keeps us alive, right? And I think that underneath anger, it's often a protective shield for grief and sadness underneath. And so to think that we need to be calm all the time, I think also puts pressure and builds shame into parents who can't. And then to think about all the reasons that it's hard. I mean, my lens is, I share it with Dr. Markham. It's self-regulation is number one, connection, and then coaching, not controlling. And even though the heart and the middle and the big message is connection and empathy and positive regard for the child, self-regulation is the first step because we can't be connected to another human unless we're connected to ourselves first. And so I think of self-regulation is feeling safe inside ourselves
Mhm.
and being present where we are. And so that takes a lot of reflection and healing and getting enough sleep. And there's the healing work and there's the daily taking care of
Pressures,
ourselves
yeah.
work that all go into self-regulation. It's basically a mindfulness practice, right? So
Right.
right. So, and it's a practice. So no one's perfect. No one's ever going to be perfect. I love Gabor Mate's quote of healing is the journey toward wholeness. So it's a moving island, we're always
Right.
further along and back and forth, so
Yeah.
and to be really, I think I just read something yesterday. I'm reading this book, Cassandra Speaks, with the book club that I'm in. And it said that the first step of healing is about loving, realizing that we care about the things we love. And
Mhm.
that to me, too, is so important in this conversation because it's about self love. When we love ourselves, then we can care for ourselves and be compassionate with ourselves. And when we look at how we got to where we are, and self regulation is still, presence is what I'm working on. And
Mhm.
it's still hard to be really present all the time. I mean, we're
Right.
not going to
Right.
be fully present all the time. And then
Right.
to think about all the things that get in the way of that and to be really compassionate with ourselves and
Yeah.
not, I think also, not to blame parents, but to blame systems, right? Because
Mhm.
uncertainty is the most stressful thing on a human body, and stress is what brings us into dysregulation, not feeling
Mhm.
safe. And so when we think about the world that we're living in and the systems of oppression and trauma that has become culture, and then just our own childhoods. I mean, that's before we
Yeah.
get to our
Yeah.
childhoods, you know?
That's all before the child is born.
And then any time we had a feeling like our connection to our parent was threatened in some way, we become dysregulated. You know, that gets put inside of our bodies and we hold it in our
Mhm.
bodies. And then when those things are recreated in our life, it feels like an emergency. So there's so many different layers to this that I think the first
Yeah.
step is just really a lot of love and self-compassion and
Yeah.
forgiveness. There's a lot to
Yeah.
unpack. Why is it hard to be regulated?
Mhm.
There's
Mhm.
so, depending on who you are, there are so many reasons, you know, that are
Mhm.
stacked
Mhm.
up against us, not to mention, you know, white supremacy and capitalism and imperialism. And, you know, Bell Hooks is someone that I revere
Mhm.
as well.
Yeah. So
And
like
that,
yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a lot of layers what you're saying. And this whole idea of I love how you framed it like it's essentially a mindfulness practice because the definition of mindfulness being is being with what is without like over dramatizing it, but also without minimizing it, and without judgment about the fact that it is. So it is like if you're having a hard time or you're angry, like being with what is without, I shouldn't be angry. I'm going to try not to be angry because that's resistance, right? And anything you resist will actually persist. So we're not saying it's healthy to be angry. We want you to stay angry because that's a healthy state. What we're saying is like, if that's what you are, then that's what it is right now, right? Like honoring that, creating space for it and relating to it. It's not taking away that anger because it's not supposed to be there and replacing it with calm. It's adding compassion and like you said, self-forgiveness. And it's almost, I think of it as like adding ingredients of safety with what is, whatever it is. And it reminds me of like the whole peaceful parenting preventative maintenance idea of welcoming all emotions with our children. But really what we're talking about here is welcoming all emotions with ourselves. That doesn't mean like shutting down your anger so you can be calm. When you welcome emotions, you don't shut any of it out. That would be repression, right? Or dissociation or
Right.
lashing out at others. It would be adding safety. It's not a subtraction, it's an addition. I'm wondering if that's kind of what you were
And I
thinking.
think that that is another, this, the safety piece, I think is really
Yeah.
big because that's the foundation to everything. It's the sound. We can't, we're, if we don't feel safe in our bodies, we're not connected to ourselves. So
Mm-hmm.
we can't be in connection with someone else if we are not connected to ourselves. And I think that I just was lately thinking about love and how we love our kids. And I have a very strong belief that all parents are doing the very best they can. They
Right.
love their children. They're doing the best they can with the tools, information, and resources they have in any given moment. And that is a lot to dig into right there. Just, you know, it's easy to say it quickly, but to really think about what those tools, the information and resources are is a lot. And I think that our real goal is to increase our safety and our relationship with our child. That's the foundation. We love them. That's a given, right?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
not about showing them, telling them we love them more and more all the time. It's
Yeah.
about allowing them to feel safe with us in
Mm-hmm.
any emotional state that they are in, which means that we have to be able to tolerate that state. And
Yeah.
that's one of the things that's hard. And all the reasons that it's hard for us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is because of stress, because we don't have time, because trauma has become culture, because of our own emergency feelings. And we are reparenting ourselves as we parent our children. And all
Mm-hmm.
of that is rooted in our nervous systems and how we react instead of respond. And
Mm-hmm.
how can we respond in any state? We can be angry and not lash out. We can be
Right.
angry and not vomit our trauma childhood on our child and say that they deserve, you made me mad and you deserve this anger, right? We
Mhm.
can make, but we first have to have the space and the self-love and the compassion and the forgiveness to say, yeah, what I went through was hard, or the reason I have these moments of that I get activated, that it all makes sense. And to have the
Mhm.
compassion and the self-love and the forgiveness, I mean, it is very layered.
It
And
is. It
then,
is. And it, yeah, go ahead.
and then the whole societal piece too, that what are the extra stressors? Instead of blaming parents, to blame systems of oppression because they're set
Mhm.
up. We're not set up in a way to hold each other, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah. Yeah. And I think for both of those, I think one of the main missing pieces for societal stress and pressure on parenting, but also for our own like work and reflections and healing, we need co-regulation. We need co-regulation. That is how we actually process. That's what therapy is. You're in relationship with a therapist who's able to create space for you it's the relationship that's healing, right? That's where you are able to, that's the safety that you talked about, like
I
nervous system
love that.
safety. Yeah.
I
And so
love
like
that.
how can we do that when we're doing it solo? I mean, you can't heal your own abandonment trauma solo. You can't heal attachment trauma by doing a workbook solo, like not fully, right? There's this social piece that we need.
Right. Well, we're meant to be in community.
Right.
And I also, we talk about children can only co-regulate. They can't self-regulate. They have to
Mm-hmm.
co-regulate. I've come to believe that that's all what we are all doing ultimately.
Right. All of us.
We learn to co-regulate with ourself. We
Mm-hmm.
learn to co-regulate with our breath or by pushing on our legs or the wall or by co-regulating with a tree that we can see. It's still co-regulation. It's just that we
Mm-hmm.
learn to do it with ourselves. So a child can't do that yet because we're mammals and we learn from modeling and practice, so
Mm-hmm.
we have to learn first how to co-regulate with ourselves. We call it
Mm-hmm.
self-regulation, so that we can co-regulate with our child so that they can learn how to do it on their own with their self. So it's still
Mm-hmm.
co-regulation, self-regulation is still co-regulation, I think.
Yeah. 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 It's like closing the loop, like the circuit closes, but it comes back to self. But if that self never had the experience, like as an adult now, if you never had the experience of co-regulation with another person, then you are only doing like half the loop. And of course you're feeling like not grounded when you're angry, right? Like you said, it's okay to be angry, but let's ground it. It's like, it reminds me of electricity, like the grounding, like, ground wire, like ground it into something so that it doesn't just go crazy. It has like some roots, right? And so then we can welcome all emotions because we have safety. There's a stability there, there's a grounding. And as adults, if we haven't had that, we need that now, right? Like that's what parent coaching is for. That's what therapy is for. It's to build the rest of the circuit, like finish the bridge that brings you back to yourself. So then once you build it, then you can go off on your own and do the self co-regulation, right, that we're talking about.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so
Beautifully.
let's talk about, yeah, like I know you have a program coming up and just would love to share before we get into the details, this whole idea of like building nervous system capacity and why it's so important for parents related to this topic of calm, good, calm enough, like
Calm enough,
regulated
being present.
enough,
Well,
present. Yeah.
I love the analogy of, I have coffee in this cup and it's very delicious.
Yeah.
Um, and if somebody bumps into me, what's going to spill out of this cup, right?
Coffee.
Coffee, right?
Yeah.
So the same is true
Yay, got
for
that right.
us. The same is true for us. Whatever
Yeah.
we have inside, whatever we've filled ourselves with,
Yeah.
when our child bumps into us, that's what we have to give them. That's what will come out. because
Mm-hmm.
that's all we're going to give, whatever we've got. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what we have to give, right?
Yeah.
So if we have been having, if we have, and to also just recognize what a privilege it is to have the time to reflect, right?
Right. Yeah.
When we're so worried about just staying alive and paying bills and getting people from A to B and taking care of parents, if you're a sandwich person with a
Yeah.
child and a parent that you're caring for. I mean, there's so much going on in this world that is not
Mm-hmm.
supportive. So if that's where you are, then you may be living on fumes and not enough sleep and chocolate bars. And when somebody bumps into you or crosses over in traffic, you know what
Yeah.
is going to come out. That's all that there is. And so we
Right.
really have to fill ourselves, our capacity, right?
Yeah.
Our
Yeah.
capacity to hold the stress of life. So
Mm-hmm.
knowing where it's at and then learning what it is that activates us and growing our awareness around that is the first step. And then doing all kinds of different somatic exercises to help us stretch and grow our capacity so that we can hold more, so that it's
Mm-hmm.
longer before we snap, so
Mm-hmm.
that we can have that growing awareness within whatever emotional state we're in, so that
Mm-hmm.
we understand our big feelings come and our big feelings
Yeah.
go. And I think that one of the most important things we do for our kids is to teach them to be uncomfortable, that they can survive being uncomfortable. But
Mm-hmm.
we have to do that too. And most of us weren't allowed to have big feelings. And so we're
Right.
not used to sitting in our own discomfort. And so then when our child is uncomfortable or doesn't like something, our body feels like it's an emergency and that we got to change it or fix it or stop it in some way
Mm-hmm.
because it doesn't feel back to safety, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, like
so,
the capacity to sit with difficult emotions. And again, going back to this, like welcoming all emotions in our kids and in ourselves. Like, what is the story in our head? But I think a lot of that is trauma work, honestly, because it can be really hard when you've been adulting for a while and decades of being an adult, and this hasn't been a pattern. And now you're supposed to feel safe with uncomfortable feelings. Again, it goes back to that co-regulation. And so it's helpful to have another adult there that can hold the safe space for you, the container for you to modulate and to tolerate. And I love how you reference like somatic practices. That's what that is, right? Like practices of titrating the difficult experience. And it reminds me of that window of tolerance idea. Like if you're within your window of tolerance, you'll be able to stay in it. But if it overwhelms you more than what you can handle, no wonder, right? And so I think it's also both like the container, we want to expand the window of tolerance slowly. It's not something you just push open. You do it by titrating and expanding slowly through exposure. But at the same time, everybody has a breaking point. Like what
right,
is an average amount of stress that a human can handle without breaking, right? Like there is like a limit out there, and some people definitely push themselves more than others, but you know like you said, the sandwich person, they've got a lot going on. That would be a lot for anybody regardless of their window of tolerance, right?
right. Or their level of sensitivity.
Right,
You know,
which goes hand in hand with that. Mm-hmm.
1 in 4 people are more, you're really taking in more information.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then your age too, how
Yeah.
long have you been
Yeah.
doing this? I'm
Right.
58. I
Mm-hmm.
came to this work when I was 48. I had done a lot of different kinds of energetic healing and yoga and things before then. So it wasn't like I
Mm-hmm.
was starting from scratch, but it's
Yeah.
still, I have a solid 35 years of neural pathways that are
Mm-hmm.
very ingrained to go
Yeah.
back to the old, right? The old reactions.
Right.
So just to
Mm-hmm.
be patient, and that's what repair and reconnection is all about. That's
Right.
why it's
Right.
so important. And that's what
Mm-hmm.
most of us didn't get was
Right.
the repair and the it's Lisa Dion talks about how families are a nervous system and how they go
Oh, I
from
like that.
from being in, they're either at peace or at war, you know? So, and then somebody is going to let the pressure off. And it may
Yeah.
be that your child is
The
releasing
sensitive child reflects the
is
family. It's
releasing the
like
stress.
the family climate. They usually are the ones that are showing everybody what the family's going through.
Right. And usually if you have a sensitive child, there's a sensitive adult in the room as
Right.
well. And you
Right.
know, as parent coaches, that's who we usually work with,
Right.
right? Are
Yeah.
people who are more sensitive and who have sensitive children. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah,
that's
because it's a
needs
lot.
the extra support. I mean,
Right.
we all need support. And then, you know, we need extra support too. So that
Mhm.
growing that capacity is, and recognizing that that is a gift to be able to take the time to do that too.
Right. Yeah, no, I love that because generationally, when we think about like previous generations and how they parented, not everybody had the privilege of doing trauma healing, right? Like they were literally living through the trauma. That was like the kickoff of the some of the traumas, right? Like I think about my grandma, one of them, she was like 5, World War II, like 5 years old in Europe. And that was the trauma happening, and then it's transgenerational, it's being passed on, right? This like nervous system state that's epigenetic, but and like somebody down the line gets to do the healing work once it feels safe enough to do that, but not everybody
Right.
does. And some of us today are going through active trauma, chronic or acute, and somebody down the line might have to do that healing work. And it's because we're all interconnected. Like we don't have to do it all, right? Like we don't have to finish everything in this lifetime.
Right. And to know that it's always in process. It is
Mm-hmm.
that journey toward wholeness, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
love the indigenous beliefs that when are able to have the time to work on healing ourselves, we are healing 7 generations back and 7 generations forward, right? So
Mm.
we get to
Love that.
do that work for our ancestors, and then we are the future ancestor doing that work for our
Mm-hmm.
children in the future. And I really love that.
Yeah.
And
And it brings
just
us
to,
back to common humanity and interconnectedness, which is a really big de-shamer. Like when you feel shame, you feel disconnected from all that. But even if you are working on difficult things, that connection allows you to be human, right? It's going back to like, it's okay if it's hard. Like it's part of being human. Guess what? That makes you human. That's what actually is like to be human. It's part of that is to suffer. Part of it is to have joy and delight and love, and part of it is to suffer too. We all
right.
experience suffering at some point.
And joy is important too, you know, and
Yes,
to be
yes.
able to tolerate the suffering as being human
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and to be
Yeah.
kind. And hopefully we do it in community. We don't have to do it alone. Just like we tell our child, you know,
Yeah.
these big feelings are so hard and scary, and you don't have to do it alone.
Mm-hmm.
You have
Mm-hmm.
to experience, you get to experience your feelings, but you don't have to do it alone.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we become the safe place if we can tolerate their big feelings, which means we have to be able to tolerate our own discomfort too, to be
Yeah.
able to tolerate our child's and be present
Mm-hmm.
for it all comes back.
Yeah.
And that's hard
Yeah.
a lot of times. And to be really patient and compassionate that it's a very slow process. And the
Mm-hmm.
more our awareness grows, the more that change happens from the inside out. It's not something that we can lay on top. We can't, I mean, we can have scripts that we don't totally buy into if we were not taught how to be in a loving connection with our child, that we can have those scripts to practice, and they may feel really awkward and sound stilted until we
Yeah.
slowly make them our own.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And at the same time, so it may be kind of a fake it till you make it in some ways, but then
Mm-hmm.
there's also the other part of it's okay to mess up and
Mm-hmm.
to make repairs and reconnect.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's the reconnection is just as important. And we reconnect with ourselves first.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, I love the power of reconnection. I'm actually reading a book right now by Ed Tronick, The Power of Discord. And he's the researcher that did the still face experiment that was so foundational in shifting how we think about that. But it's so amazing because the discord is the rupture. And what's powerful is that he says you don't need to do it perfectly. Like good enough parenting is like on average, based on this they've studied this with like adults and children. If you're attuned and responsive and regulated enough about 30% of the time, that actually produces a healthy child. Literally, you don't have to do it at 90%,
no.
like 30%, which is like, based on his research, it's less than like half the time that, you should like, be responsive. And the 70% is the part where you can repair. Like if you're literally not there, you're not there to be responsive. And maybe you are there, but you're not available, or you have the still face on you, or you're distracted with the screen, or you lost it. That's where the repair comes in. So 70% of the time you can repair, and it works. Like the formula works in your child's favor and your favor.
Yeah,
So much pressure gets taken off.
30%
Mm-hmm.
gives our child enough trust to know that
Yeah.
when they are having a hard time, that we'll show
Yeah.
up and be there.
Mm-hmm.
That we're creating the safety, physical and emotional
Yeah.
safety first,
Mm-hmm.
that we see them
Yeah.
for who they are and where they're at and what they're going through, and not who we want them to be or wish they were, and that we can
Mm-hmm.
soothe them. That's the recipe that
Yeah.
Tina Bryson and Dan Siegel
Mm-hmm.
give for a secure attachment. And when we can
Yeah.
do that 30% of the time,
Yeah.
that's enough
Yeah.
to
And let's say
create the
somebody,
trust.
yeah, to create the trust that you always come back to each other.
Right.
And I'm thinking, if anybody listening feels like I can't even get to 10%, it's always chaos. My kid's having a hard time. They might, have a diagnosis, or maybe there's struggles in the family where it feels pretty chronic that you don't even get the 30% of, responsiveness, connection, delight, safety for when it's hard. I'd love for you to share this upcoming program, which would be for somebody that resonates with that, where they want to build more capacity. And even if you're at 30% and you want to build more capacity, great. But I think especially parents that might feel guilty or feel like, oh no, like I don't think I'm at 30%. What can I do? You can build more capacity. So I'd love for you to share about that.
Yeah, I'm doing a program with Crystal Harris that I mentioned before. She is a somatic therapist and an intuitive that I met a few years ago, and I took this course,
Mm-hmm.
and really loved it. She explains the nervous system and how it
Mm-hmm.
works so beautifully and in really tangible, get it kind of ways. And
Mm-hmm.
she's fun, and she's just so present also and genuine, and I adore
Yeah.
her. And we talked after the workshop ended, and it was kind of an exit interview, and we just really connected and decided then
Mm-hmm.
that one day we wanted to do something together. And so this
Mm-hmm.
summer we're calling it Summer School, and it's capacity for parents. So it's her
Mm-hmm.
capacity program all on
Mm-hmm.
its own, which is a self-paced program with at least 32 different somatic practices to try,
Mm-hmm.
so that
Mm-hmm.
you can see what works for your body when, so that,
Yeah.
because we have to practice these things when we are more regulated, so that they can work when we are dysregulated,
Yeah.
um, and then there's the addition for parents is me. And so we're going to do, for the attendees of 4 days of private Zooms with what's going to be lunch for the East Coast and coffee for me, a lunch
Mm-hmm.
hour, um, talking about what we're talking about today, talking more about connection, talking about
Mm-hmm.
brain development in children and
Mm-hmm.
how to create what is a secure attachment, how do children seek attachment, and then
Mm-hmm.
connection and how to increase connection. And
Yeah.
then maybe we're definitely going to have some games because I think her daughter wants to join in the last day and they're going to do some games together, some
Mhm.
roughhousing games, and practice it out. And maybe if we have time, a little setting limits with empathy, so much to pack in.
So much, yeah. And maybe there'll be like another round of it another time in the future where you can
But
expand on it. But yeah, it sounds jam-packed.
it's going to be a lot of fun. And
Yeah.
she's always a lot of fun and
Yeah.
really accessible, making all of
Hmm.
this accessible to real life and real people.
Yeah.
So, yep,
Yeah. Sounds
capacity
amazing.
with Crystal the Oracle. So I'll give you that information.
Yeah.
And
That sounds amazing. Yeah, we'll have that linked below here. And I think you said the doors close Monday next week. So that's
the
um
8th
the
at
8th of
midnight, I
June.
think, on the 8th of June. It
Hmm.
starts on the 9th of June and goes through the 13th.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's coming up next week. So if you're listening to this podcast and it's already passed, definitely check out the link because there'll probably be more info about like maybe next session that's available. But if you're listening to this in time, check it out. And maybe this is something you can hop on and join. Yeah, just in time for summer, right?
Right. When we have more time with our kids, maybe, or they
Yeah.
have more time and we're still doing all the things
Yeah.
that we have to do.
Yes, yes, yes. Which is what my summit is about. And, how do we navigate summer because it can be a little chaotic with the schedule changes and
Right.
coordinating everything. But yeah, building more capacity for delight, joy, regulation, while also holding more capacity for holding all the other things, right? Like
Right. And
anger,
I mean,
frustration,
being able to
sadness.
hold more
Yeah,
allows us to deal with, to have more room for
right.
joy and delight, right?
Yeah, yeah,
That our
yeah.
cups don't get knocked over and we don't get spilled on.
And when they do, that stuff that comes out of the cup is,
Is
I
laughter and relax.
yeah,
It's okay and grace
yeah,
and
right.
forgiveness and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
compassion and understanding instead of stress and frustration and
Right.
I don't have time for this and anger and
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I think such a timely conversation for those of us feeling, burnt out, overwhelmed in the thick of it. And knowing there's like with resources, like I love the question of like, what can I do now to support myself? Which Dr. Laura kind of taught us all, I think, in training. That's the answer is not self-criticism, right? Or like shame or like lashing out. The answer is asking yourself, what do I need now to support myself? And then how can I move one step in the right direction towards that support? The answer is always more support, right? So this is one opportunity for parents to get the support. Check it out, the link below. And thank you, Thana, so much for your wisdom and taking the time to share this. Yeah, especially in the state of the world these days and parents trying to parent alongside everything. I think a really, really important conversation to bring awareness
Yeah.
around and normalizing
I heard somebody
normalization.
say that when the revolutions come in all the movies and books, you're never having to work and live your normal life full time at the same time, you know?
Yeah.
So when the world is feeling like there's so much and you
Yeah.
still have to pay the bills and take care of your kids and show up for yourself and your partner and life and
Mm-hmm.
and some people
Yeah.
have felt like this is, how it's always been for them.
Right. There's a sense of like previous generations had their own different versions and flavors of this. I guess it's just humanity. But I do feel like on average, we are becoming a little bit more, I don't know. Maybe, yeah, maybe that's too far fetched, but a
Well, I've
little bit
heard
more
somebody say
civilized.
that oh, I'm gonna say it wrong. No, I can't say it because I can't quite say it correctly, so it won't make sense. But
Okay.
basically,
Yeah.
um, yeah, something about fascism is for white people what the, people of color have been dealing with for all forever,
Mm,
so
mm,
that
mm,
we're just finally catching up to what daily life is always like, being
mm.
in this current climate. It's giving us
Yeah.
a taste. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
a lot
Yeah.
to deal with.
It is a lot to deal with, the state of affairs.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, well, thank you so much for the conversation and
Well,
really
thank
appreciate you
you.
taking the time. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You're
All right.
welcome. Thank you.